Hi, welcome to Lighthouse Living Room, and for the next few minutes, your host, Pastor Mark here at the Lighthouse in Oakview, California. I hope that I find you safe and in a good place. I hope for the sake of all of us, this holiday season finds you with family and friends. Tonight, we're going to wind up our discussion on what are disciples and what do they do? What does a disciple do? I'm going to end with this one thought, and then we're going to move on to some definitions. One of the things that I find very, not very well done is explaining some of the things that are in the supernatural realm. Much of what we do and much of what we understand, especially when it comes to the supernatural realm, are things that we have caught or we have thought that we have caught in the vernacular, if you will, and understanding them sometimes is very difficult. We're going to talk about a few of those tonight. In lieu of that, though, we're going to start where the last portion of what does a disciple do. Well, there's two things left in our discussion, of which won't take long to go through, but we were going to talk about it. Disciples suffer. One of the things that we need to understand is that the element that might surprise you more than anything else, but it's clear in the New Testament that Jesus even told his disciples in John 15:18 through 20, he said this, "If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world will love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I had said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they'll persecute you." And that is totally true, especially in today's economy. The other thing that's interesting is that this is where the believing loyalty is really tested. Believing loyalty, in other words, believing in the Lord Jesus. It's one thing to learn that we need to have a change of heart on how to live. It's quite another to follow Jesus and then suffer for it, which kind of happens as a general rule. The apostles suffered for following Jesus. We can find this, and if you've got something to write with, I'll give you some examples here. Acts chapter 5, verse 41, Acts chapter 9, verse 16, Acts chapter 21, verse 13, and then, of course, 2 Corinthians 11, 22 through 29. These are all talking about things that the disciples would suffer. Holding on to faith is a theme throughout the whole of the New Testament. We find that in Romans 8, 17 through and 18, 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 7, Philippians, 1, 27 to 30, and 1 Peter 3, 13 through 17. That's 1 Peter 3, 13 through 17. Peter, one of the original, the 12 disciples, had seen Jesus suffer and had been imprisoned for his faith. We find that in Acts chapter 12, 1 through 19. And he wrote to believers that had been displaced and scattered by persecution. Well, look what it says in 1 Peter 2:20, just for the sake of kicks and giggles, I'll kind of give you an idea. "For what credit is it if, when you sin, you are beaten for it, you endure?" Question. But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure. This is a gracious thing in the sight of God. For to this you have been called, because Christ has suffered for you, leaving you an example that he might follow in his steps. He committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. And when he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to judges justly, who justly judges. And it goes on, enduring suffering requires us also to remember that the gospel does not promise ease in this life. In other words, when you come to faith, it isn't tiptoes through the tulips with me. It's more along the line of it's an everlasting place in God's family, and in the life to come, for sure, that is one thing, but the world is not our real home, and we kind of need to know that. And that's one of the challenges that I think we have, is understanding the difference between what it is to suffer for Jesus' sake, taking persecution, saying things that they do about you and other things that they say about us as a general rule, because we are different. We should be. And if we're not different, then why are we even bothered? What's the point? You cannot be like the world and expect the world to love you if you are bucking the things that they're telling you should be doing. I mean, it's just what it is. If we do what everybody else is doing, then we're no different than them. What is the point? What is the point? It's just, there is no point, really, I mean, in reality. And then the last thing on our list, what do disciples do, or what have they done, is that disciples make more disciples. In other words, if you're doing exactly what Jesus said to do, go out and make disciples. Now, the thing is we learned this Sunday, and again, reiterate, he says that we not only learn, but we need to be taught to be disciples. This is not a natural thing. It just doesn't happen overnight. Now, while loving God and our neighbor, each of us have the most important aspect of being a disciple. The most important thing disciples do is make other disciples. Now, this is what was the task Jesus commanded his followers just before he ascended into heaven. And that's the reason for what we call the Great Commission. That's Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20. It says this, "And Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.'" And now, making disciples of all nations is a very important thing. Much of what we do in regards to our lifestyle should be reflecting the lifestyle of Jesus. What was Jesus' lifestyle? What? To talk about his dad, talk about the things to come, talk about things that are happening, and lay hands on people, heal them, minister to them, give them life. It's just what it is. Make a disciple of all nations, he said. That was the big part of the story of the Bible. The authority of supernatural powers that have enslaved the nations have been taken away because God sent his son. That which was a bondage maker became a freedom maker. In other words, he was releasing people from their bondages, the things that were going on in their lives. God wants his children, his partners, his disciples, his son, Jesus, to share the good news of the gospel everywhere, no matter where it would take you. Now, I find it interesting that our task is to tell the good news and live it out in front of them. In other words, act like what Jesus would want you to act like. Part of the family, bringing them into the family, to teach them to do the same. And how do we do that? By sharing our faith. Our faith is the thing that should make other people look at us a little different. At least I would hope so. Much of what we do, much of what we say that when we're here within the four walls and the safety of not being or looking weird. But the thing is that if you're going to express yourself, then you should express the things that Jesus has done for you. So first, tell people about the life before you believed the gospel and embraced the forgiveness of God through Jesus. Pretty simple. Tell them what you were like before, and tell them what you're like now. Is it better? I hope so, because if it's not, why would we do that? Why would I exercise that? Why would I want to be free from this old life anyway? People enjoy stories, especially about other people. I don't know why, but I think it's something that in a person's story that connects to their story or connects to their life. And when you tell someone about your life, and before the understanding of the Gospels, some detail of your life, it will be familiar to the person that you're talking to. And maybe a lot of that in your story will connect with them. You just don't know. I mean, in my life, I was pretty worthless, to be honest with you. And all I did was kind of leech on everybody else, and it's unsatisfying to talk about something in my past. The second thing that we need to tell them, hearing and believing the gospel, was a turning point for you. For me, I was out in I was out in a party and doing what we do at parties, being stupid, and a guy leaned over to me that I ran with, and basically told me, he says, "Oh, the devil's got you now." Boy, did that rung true to me. I still remember that saying. That was like 50 years ago, feels like. Probably has been 50 years ago. But but I'm just saying, it's just bizarre. All of a sudden, it just like dawned on me. It said where I've come from. Now, it's, sometimes it's wonderful to know that despite the things that we've done to ourselves, to other people, God still loved me. Anyway. Even every Sunday, I'd go to the altar because I was convicted of my sin. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know what grace was. I just knew that I was pretty nasty dude, and things that I did was pretty despicable. The things that I did and how I did them, and how we created an atmosphere in which, as far as I'm concerned, it was just not a good thing. But now, all of a sudden, here I am, sharing the story of how God sent Jesus to forgive me, even me. And when I would tell other people about him, many times I got laughed in the face. Many times I was told what a nitwit I was. Even my father told me the same thing. He said, it's a waste in your life. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Sometimes I have to ask myself the same question over and over again. Where would I be now? Or would I even be alive? I have to say I don't think I would be. Just saying. Third, tell people about the impact of believing the gospel and being forgiven in your life. Tell them what it's like to know God's forgiveness, His love, His promise, His everlasting life. All the stuff that goes with it. Tell them how it's changed your perspective on who you are and why you're here. Tell them how embracing the gospel has changed you. Some things you just can't make up. It's just stuff that happens in your life. Being an agnostic, being someone who didn't believe in God. I think I always believed in God. I don't know if I ever expressed that I had a need for God until I came into contact with the living God. I know, because my drug use and other stuff that I was doing was stupid. It was taking me down a road to death. And I knew that. Some people, may want to see a proof of a changed heart, especially in me. The one important reason to live a holy life. What is that? Do you know what that is in your life? Being a disciple is more than just saying, I'm a disciple. You have to live it out. You have to be somebody to express yourself to what it is that's going on around you. People want to be loved, and they're looking for authenticity. They're looking for real. They're looking for the real deal. I am so discouraged with some folks that they live out their life totally embraced in themselves. And the joy of giving to someone else, or the joy of giving away your life to another person to see them grow is pretty fascinating to me. Because not everyone believed Jesus, and not everyone will believe in the gospel when you share it with them. But it's sometimes not your job to see the transition. Sometimes it's just your job to tell them and let somebody else do the watering and the planting and the growing and the weeding and the nurturing. That's some of the things. But you've got to remember, you can't give it up. You've got to go forward with what you believe. Being a disciple is making a difference now, every day, to people that feel lost, especially in this day and age. It's very sad. So I think being a disciple is just something that you have to do and you have to work on every single day. And I'm not sure that many of us understand the concept of doing that, but I do believe that it is important that we do. I want to talk to you a little bit tonight, in the remaining time that we have, about some things that basically I would call them supernatural terms and understanding them. I'm going to where I get some a bunch of information in front of me so we can relate it. There's some things that I think that we don't really understand in regards to the supernatural world. I think we do, but I don't think we do to the extent that understanding that there is a supernatural world out there, something that is not seen but present, and understanding the terms of what that means or what it looks like. Sometimes it's important for us to understand in a maybe a better way, and I'll try to do that. I will try to help you with that tonight. Now, I'm looking to this from the perspective because in the world of being a disciple, the world of loving and encouraging and giving yourself and being part of a mirror image of the person of Jesus, we have to come to a place where we understand what's out there and what's being, how can I say, obvious. Much of what we do sometimes is not as obvious as it should be. Now, the Bible teaches us that there is an unseen world out there, a world of spirit beings. These beings, not by nature, have bodies, but they can assume physical form, even though they can move from place to place without going through a door. They still are beings. We think of it, the only time that we really kind of conjure up some kind of an idea of what that might look like is probably during the times of like Halloween and other times where we think about what these things are, and then we read through Scripture about things that were happening, especially in the Old Testament or in the New Testament, when we're talking about the work of the Holy Spirit and how it works and what it looks like. Now, even though these beings do not by nature have bodies, they can assume physical form. Now, the spirit world is supernatural, a world that is in different nature than the physical world or beyond supernatural, if you will, the physical world. In other words, it seems to be contradictory that we see physical things, and so we relate better to physical things than we do to spiritual things. God is a member of the spiritual world, but superior to it in the fact that He is the creator of it. God alone is uncreated and eternal, no beginning, no end. He is God. He is bigger than everything else. He spoke into existence the world as we know it. He created us to be His family. Whether we like it or not, whether we think it or not, He is basically over us, but yet we are of Him, and He desires this kind of relationship. Now, He created all the other spirit beings that inhabit the spiritual world, just as He created all life on the world that we know, in other words, the physical or the material world, as we call it. And I think this is really hard for us to grasp, at least especially for even me, as many years as I've been down the road, and the things that I've seen, and how a spiritual entity can have a hold over a human is so mind-boggling in my mind. And to know that spirit is acting out through an individual, like the spirit of lust or the spirit of covetousness or jealousy or anger or fear or any of these, because all these things are not things that come from God. Those words that I just mentioned are all part of a spiritual realm, but it's the dark side, that the thing that is being created, and our emotions are attached to us, that we react a certain way to the things that are outside, in the outside world. Now, the Bible talks about very clearly, describes members of the spirit world with various terms. We find it here. If you want to read some of this, I would suggest that you do, like in Romans 8:38 and 1 Peter 3:22. That's Romans 8:38 and 1 Peter 3:22. Now, Some of the terms are a job description. For instance, when we talk about angels, okay, everybody thinks that angels have wings and they're all white and they kind of do their things. Well, the thing is that angels is not so much describing what it looks like. An angel is a job description for that which does a job in the spiritual realm of the unseen realm that we do not see. An angel is a messenger. That's its job description. It is said in the Greco-Roman culture of the New Testament, angels also become a term for a member of the heavenly host who had not rebelled against God. The term demon, think about this, became a label for all who did rebel, despite the fact that demon had a variety of meanings in the ancient world. Lots of different ideas of what a demon was. And there's a lot of different understandings of what a demon or their work or their description of what they do and how they work within the framework of a supernatural, unseen world. Now, the description of the phrase is the phrase that we've been talking about, and I've talked about many times from the pulpit, and a lot of people don't understand that. We talk about the descriptive phrase called the sons of God. Is a family term that reminds us that God is the Father, creator of spirit beings. The term means more than that, though. As I have discussed and told you in the past, is that the sons of God, Elohim, God, you need to understand that there is hierarchy in that description. Now, what do I mean by that? There's God Most High, okay, which is the creator, no beginning, no end. He is the one that has made everything, okay? Nothing can harm him. Nothing can destroy him. We can sadden him. We can make him feel that he's, how can I say, made a mistake. We can, because he has feelings like us, and he has emotions, and he has this, how can I say, in a nutshell, he has everything that we are, the best of who we are as a human, the very best of who we are is enveloped in him. Through his Son, now, who is God, Elohim, again, different tone, denotion, same name. The sons of God were the council in which the heavenlies, you know, the 4 and 20 elders and all the other stuff that we read in Revelation, talking about all of the things that you see. These are beings, if you will, that are in the higher echelon of understanding. Now, the problem is that they have jobs as well. And we need to understand what some of those jobs are. We'll get into that here maybe in a little bit. Now, it's a descriptive phrase. The sons of God is a family term, okay? Sons of God. We would immediately say sons of God. Okay, so sons of the Most High? Yes. Sons in regards to like Jesus? No. They were created beings to serve the community of believers on the planet, but in heaven to God himself. He's serving. There are angels that bow, seraphim, they call them, that bow down and worship God all of the time, created, yet free will, and they do this on a day-to-day basis. Now, the sons of God refers to a high rank of God's labor force. These were in, how can I say it, in the ancient world, received high positions of responsibility. In the biblical story, the sons of God were assigned to the nations God had judged at Babel. Do you remember that? When God judged the planet, basically, the Babel, king of Babylon, and all that was going, and then they were building a ziggurat, they call that, which was basically a tower that they were going to reach God, and they're going to shoot an arrow in there and try to touch God. Well, the thing was that it just totally didn't blow God away. He knew he was capable of, because he said very much, he said that these would figure out how to do these things, and he actually said that there would be nothing that would stop them from doing what they want to do. And so he hit them with language, and when language hit them, they were spread out, and they became these 72 at the point, or 70 to 72, depending on which Bible you read, which commentator that helped put the Bible together. But needless to say, we're 70 to 72. All of them are, if I can say, are explained in Genesis chapter 6, I think it is, chapter 11. And they were sent out. And at that point in time, God sent his council, sons of God, council, labor force. I want you to keep an eye on each of these groups, the 70 of them. And so in doing that, and then that's when all the trouble started, because all of a sudden they decided that they wanted a family too. So they went down and took human females and had relations with them, and then they grew what they call the giants that we talk about. And that's when things got a little bit out of crazy. Again, this is a unseen realm, the space or spirit area that they are at, and they were operating that, and they were supposed to watch over the group, and we'll call them, for lack of a better term, other than Jews, Gentiles, outside of the realm of that, and they were to report back to God on how things were going. Instead, they decided that it might be cool to get worship, and in doing that, I'm going to start my own family, kind of what God wanted to do, I'm going to do here. And they did. They did exactly that. And boy, did they cause all kinds of problems. So merely delivering the message was not enough for them. Merely doing what they were told to do was not enough, because God gave them all free will. All beings that he created gave free will. Even Jesus had free will. He could have just said, no, Father, I can't do this. But what did he say in the garden before they were going to crucify him? Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Fascinating stuff. I mean, this doesn't complicate things. It actually makes you understand the breadth and the size of what God was doing and how he was doing it, especially here. And we find it very, very fascinating. Now, originally all the members of the spirit world were loyal to God, but things didn't stay that way. What happens, he shared his qualities with the members of the spirit when he created them. And one of those qualities, again, was a free will. Some of the members of the spiritual world exercised their freedom by rebellion against God's wishes and God's human family. Collectively, as this took place, all spirit beings in rebellion against God and his people are the powers of darkness, what I call the Dark Lord, what I call the things that are happening. And I make reference to that, understanding that in the spiritual realm, as God is working, there are those entities that are out there that have been confined to the planet because after they were cast out of heaven, they could not go back and basically, how can I say it, interact with God, because it was forbidden. There was a war that took place. The war took place. They were separated out and cast to the planet. That's why we see all of this evil that's taking place all over the world, all of this nonsense that's going on, all of these different gods, all of this incredible amount of thirst for power, China and North Korea and all these dictators that are trying to create that utopia and create an atmosphere where they are in control of everything. And it's very scary, but God knew that was coming. He knew that was going to. So now the Bible describes 3 such rebellions. The first occurred in the Garden of Eden, right? First rebellion was the snake. We don't even know if it was a snake at that point in time, but it was beautiful, whatever it was, the description Eve gave us, and that this creature could speak, and it spoke to her, or some people believe that he could he could speak to her into her head, but I don't believe that because I don't see how that could possibly be it. Because even today, the enemy cannot read your thoughts. He cannot get in your brain. He can give you a thought. If you decide to bring it in, now it's a different story. But here's some things that we need to understand. The Garden of Eden was the first. One of the members of the spiritual world wanted to undermine God's desire to have a human family. And how do you do that? By making them sin. So we find that happening in the biblical story figure. Eve, as a servant, deceived her. And later, the Bible labels like Satan, the term means adversary, the devil, adversary. The term means the term devil means slanderer, became the names for the original rebel. Later in the biblical story, some of the heavenly sons of God rebelled. They transgressed the boundary between spiritual and physical world. And what did they do? They came down, and in the short book of Jude describes their sin as not staying within their position of authority. In other words, they were given authority and they went beyond that. And in doing that, the church tradition eventually came to call these rebellious sons of God fallen angels. Well, describe their fall from holiness or demons to denote their wickedness, despite the fact that the Old Testament never uses angels or demons of the rebels in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Now, lastly, the sons of God, into whom the nations were assigned after the Tower of Babel episode that I just talked about, we find became corrupt to a point of their assignments. We find that in Psalms chapter 82, in which tells all about their judgment, what's going to happen to them. He said they're going to take away their deity, or would you say their eternalness, and that they're going to die like humans, feel the pain of it, and not a good situation, to say the least. And so these are some of the things that we need to understand that was going on. So there's a lot of things happening within the framework of what we're talking about in the unseen realm, or in the darkness of what the enemy is trying to perpetrate on humans. These territorial entities, if you will, are basis of supernatural princes associated with the nations in Daniel. These princes or principalities in which Daniel was dealing with, Michael was fighting with, we find in the book of Daniel chapter 10. And we need to understand what that's all about, because these authorities, these thrones, these powers. And then, of course, Paul writes about the various passages in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 and 12. All these terms speak of geographical dominion, in other words, over areas like we have here in the Ojai Valley. And I've talked about this in the past, and I believe that one of the darkest places in the nation, at least in our nation, and it ain't Salem, Massachusetts, where the witch trials took place and all the other stuff. I think that there's so much influence in our valley alone because of its north, south, east, west vortex. That is where, basically a vortex is where these two valleys come together in the center in the Ojai Valley, and I believe that's one of the places, one of the darkest places on the planet. And why do I feel that way? Is because of what I see transpiring in the minds and hearts of the people that are here in this valley, thinking that they're okay as long as everything goes. Why is it that so many are drawn to this place? Why is it so many different individuals that claim to be religious leaders of one kind or another? They just kind of are captivated and they come to this place. And why are the churches never seem to have any kind of form of revival? There doesn't seem to be any newness of life transpiring. It's all kind of, do we just kind of go along to get along type thing. And I say that in all honesty, is that some of these things, and we need to understand that the geographical dominion of these entities in this area, and just the corruptness that's happened. Just so many things and so many people here. And that's why the church has to be a place of prayer. It has to be a place where we can come and feel safe and be able to exercise and worship and do the things that we need to do to see the change that needs to take place in this place that we call home. And I'm convinced that the only way that that's going to change, the only way that it's going to become a reality, is if we, as individuals, take on the responsibility of being the watchman. Remember, because these geographical places that I'm just talking about, where the sons of God were supposed to come and protect and oversee what was going on the planet, they let them go into all kinds of different religious paganism of one kind or another, religion that was distorted and horrible. It wasn't until, oh gosh, just about the time that Jesus went into the tomb that there was really just only really 2 or 3 different really major religious orders, if you will. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, out of the planet, like it says in Revelations, he says the abyss was open and all of these entities started coming out. We saw all of these different things. Walter Martin's famous for his book on cults and talking about the things that we're up against now and how they've distorted. Even Christianity is distorted. It's not anywhere close to what the beginning was. And then, of course, the church itself was persecuted. The Romans persecuted, the people persecuted. It wasn't until Constantine came to faith, and then all of a sudden the Roman Empire stopped persecuting the church, and the church exploded, even though all of the persecution seemed to keep the church growing on a pretty steady rate. We just need to understand what's going on. So the powers of darkness, these things that are out there, these entities that are out there that we cannot see, but that are active in our community, at our workplace, in our schools, especially in our schools, and the things that they're trying to perpetrate, especially in this California, as far as I'm concerned, it's got to be one of the darkest cities, darkest states in our country. I'm not too sure that maybe it rivals New York, but I'm just saying is that there's so much going on that you need to see it for what it is and the nonsense that they're trying to do. And I believe that God has a bigger plan for all of us if we would just get on board, become the disciple that you need to be, take it to the next level, spend time in prayer, shut the TV off, stop listening to everything else and so on, reading all of these other different books. Take your time, concentrate on the things that God is trying to do, and be part of the difference in this place. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why anyone would want to do anything else. People are very important. People are the ones that we're going for. People that have distorted their lives, destroyed much of what they should be doing, and giving them an opportunity to come to faith and then grow them by teaching them how to become a disciple and then multiply themselves. That's what we're all about. Well, I have talked enough tonight, and next week we're going to jump into another subject and see if we can't dissect that a little bit, hoping that all that we've been doing will actually air on the right time, since we've been having some challenges with that. So all I can say to you tonight is that let the Lord show you where you fit. Be part of the answer. Have your testimony ready to give to those that would ask, and to share them. Bring them to church. Bring them to Bible study. Take them, bring them to our dinner on whenever we have our time, when we have fellowship, and just allow Jesus to be Jesus in you, through you, with you. Love you tonight. I hope God has got a great week for you coming up. And enjoy the holiday and the holidays. And we'll see you soon. See you on Sunday. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May his light shine upon you wherever you go, no matter what you do, no matter where you go. Leave a blessing. See you then.